There's if you go that way, it'll take you right into the canoes, where the canoes are.
Okay.
But across there, they have like the battleground. There's a battleground that was over there.
Yeah.
Probably a little more stories over there.
Oh, okay. I'll hit that then over there. And then you can rent like canoes and kayaks there too?
Yeah, there's a bikes and you can actually rent a bike if you wanted to.
Wow. I'll remember this for during the middle of the week.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
To take a kayak. Oh, listen, God bless you, my brother.
All right.
You have a great ride.
Thank you.
So, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love God. I'm grabbing the camera because that fellow just had an encounter. I just got done with church, and you know, people sometimes ask as a missionary, like, Starry, why are you going all over the place, and don't you work for a living? You know, always the naysayers who are there to judge. And you know what? That's okay, because that's what they did with Jesus. When Jesus was out on the Sabbath, you know, they accused him, the Pharisees accused him of working, right? Of working. And people accuse me of working because I grab my camera and I post videos on the Sabbath. And you know what? It's the same thing they did with Jesus. I don't care, because this is God's work. And God's work is witnessing to people and then glorifying God with what he just did. Now, I just got done with church. I was in the car and I prayed. And I'm like, Lord, I saw this guy sitting in the car. And I'm like, you know, there's a guy sitting in the car. It's running. And I don't know his deal. And so I've just prayed. I'm like, Lord, if you can use me, use me. So he gets out the same, as I'm getting my bike helmet on, he gets out. And I said, oh, hey, I just have a question. I said, do you live around here? He says, yeah. I said, have you been on this bike trail? He said, oh, yeah. And I said, I got a road bike. Can I road bike it? He said, oh, no, probably not. You probably can't. And I'm like, okay, is there any place around? Oh, yeah. And then he told me where to go. He said, oh, Jupiter Park. A great place for road biking. You don't have to worry about running into traffic or anything. And he said, I guess we got in this again. Where do you live? And I got to figure out where to go here. Look at how cool this is. And I said, oh, you know, I'm just I just live wherever. You know, the Lord just brought me from here. I was over there, and I'm over here. And I said I just work for the Lord, and today's my Sabbath. And I'm just so happy about being blessed that I can rest in the Lord now. I said, you know, I had great fellowship at church. And then this is what I do. I go out, and that's really awesome. He says, I really like that. And he said, you know, I go to church on Sunday. And he says, you know, there's different levels of church. I said, oh, yeah. He says, so my two sons go to two different churches. I go to another church. He says, one church I go to, they really get deep into the meat. And he says, the other church, not so much. Not so much. And I said, yeah, you're right. There are different levels. Absolutely. And I said, you know, for me, for the Sabbath, I'm just I'm like, what happened to the fourth commandment? So I said, that just kind of convicted me. And that's why I do the Sabbath, and why I go to church on the Sabbath. And he's like, wow, I really appreciate that. That's really awesome. And he said, well, thanks for sharing that. And I said, you know what? Can I give you something? Because I said, this is what I do. This is what I do as a missionary. I got to give you a book. And he said, oh, yeah, that would be awesome. So I go to the car and praying about, like, what can I give him? And I'm like, you know what? I felt impressed upon to give him the Great Controversy. So I grabbed the Great Controversy, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give you this book. And I opened it up, and I said, you know, I'll be honest. I haven't read the beginning of it, but the back, I said, I really like the back because it's about God's irrefutable law. It's about do the dead speak at all? It's about a prophecy. And he says, oh, okay. And I said, but you know, if you really like history, and I said, I don't like history, but it talks about the French Reform, talks about the Swiss Reformers, it talks about Martin Luther. He's like, oh, he says, I love history. He says, this is the thing, like George Washington crossing the river on the Christmas Eve. You know, we don't talk about that. That was what the revolution was about. And he started talking about history. And I'm like, oh man. I said, well, I'll tell you what, this book is going to be for you, because it's all riddled with history in the very beginning. It's the history of our nation, religious wise, you know, about the reformers and everything. And he's like, wow. He said, yeah, definitely, I'll read that. And I said, do you see how God picked that book out just for you? And he says, that's awesome. That's really awesome. He was such a nice guy. And you know, 10, 15 minutes of my time, and it's the Sabbath. And in fact, just before I left the church on Sabbath, I ran into this fellow and his kids who were up in Tennessee. He's like, oh, I remember you. He says, what are you doing here in Florida? I'm like, what are you guys doing here in Florida? He said, we're on our way to a medical missionary training. I'm like, oh, that's so weird that you're here. And so we had a great conversation. And then I said, well, you know, I got to get going because on the Sabbath, what I do is I just walk, talk, have encounters, and hand out books. And the little kids, they were so cute. His little kid, yeah, we hand out tracts. And we put them everywhere, and they were telling me how they hand out tracts, and they put them in the bathrooms, and oh, they just love the Lord. So, it's been a good day so far. But anyway, I wanted to share that real quick encounter with you, and just glorify God today, and tell you that God is good, and He connects us, and He uses us. No matter who we are, and just remember, we all have a talent. If you know the story about the talents, remember, you don't want to be the one who buries your talent and keeps it underneath the dirt, right? Because even if He's giving you 1 talent or 4 talents, we are called to use those talents so that it builds our character and so that people can see Jesus in us. So use your talent today, whatever it is. All right, God bless.